Okay, good evening, councilors. It is 6:30 p.m. I will call the Tuesday, February 4th meeting of the Superior Common Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Ledeen.
Here.
Councilor Van Sickle.
Here.
Councilor Moffitt.
Here.
Councilor Sweeney.
Here.
Councilor Fennessy. Here. Councilor Elm.
Here.
Vice President Ludwig.
Here.
Councilor Herrick.
Here.
Councilor Johnson.
Here.
And President Grasky.
We have a quorum.
Item 4.1 is the approval of the January 21st, 2025 regular council meeting minutes.
Motions by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Herrick. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 6.1 is report from Mayor Payne.
Good evening again, councilors. Just have a little bit of business. The most urgent, I think most of you are going to Superior Days, and so we have our final training meeting on Friday. What time is it on Friday? 6:30? Okay. Double check the time. We'll send out an agenda, but it's on Friday. That's the final training meeting. If you have any last minute issues, travel, especially the lobby teams or your legislative assignments, reach out to us. But as I mentioned at lobby leader training, a lot of that could change at the last minute. We have a lot of very shifting registrations, people that can't make it at the last minute or people that join at the last minute. That changes those lists up until the very end. So just bear with us on that. It's something we go through every year, but it's looking forward to it. It's going to be a really exciting 40th Superior Days, and as of right now, it's the best attended in several years, in quite a while. So it's that's going to be very exciting. Second, in a bit of exciting news for the city of Superior, some of you may have remembered or noticed over the summer, the DTA, the Duluth Transit Authority, held something of a contest, a public event where they invited public personalities, elected officials, local news personalities to drive a bus through an obstacle course in Duluth and to compete with each other for accuracy and time. They invited me, and I saw it as a chance to represent the city of Superior and to speak well of the DTA. So I did it, but I warned them. It's a long story, but I was trained to drive a bus in the Marines, and Marines teach everybody to do everything aggressively. So long story short, I have won the contest, achieving the first ever Golden Cone Award that I've brought home to the city of Superior. And I'm warned that this may be the last time that they passed a resolution from the DTA board, and so this may be the last time anybody gets this, quote, historic achievement, because they said apparently it is too unsafe to let anybody compete against my time. So I will take questions from the press and pose for photographs after the meeting. But the Golden Cone now permanently belongs to the city of Superior. That is my report.
Item 7.1 is the business of the Human Resources Committee with the meeting held on January 27th. Is the report from the chair.
Thank you, Clerk. I'll be brief. In your minutes, you can see that the Human Resource Committee approved hiring of 4 positions in the police department for those officers, and we updated the job descriptions and approved the request to fill for 2 light equipment operators in streets and 1 in parks. We also updated and posted the managerial position in the Environmental Services Division and updated the job description for the Facility Maintenance and Construction Supervisor. I thought there was one. Oh, and you'll note also in the minutes that we did hold the request to fill for the temporary admin position at the landfill. Just want to make sure that's the best decision at this time, or if there's a way to fill that need another way. Any questions? Happy to take those. Thank you.
Unless there are questions for the chair, we will move on to the other standing committees.
Item 7.3 is the business of the Finance Committee with the meeting held on January 28th. Is there a report from the chair? Yes, thank you.
Sorry, Council, could you turn that on one more time? I cut you off.
The big news is the Finance Committee has moved its time. We are on a trial basis the fourth Thursday of the month. It seems to, we had a little conflict, so we're trying that out for, it's still at 4:30, so our attendance wasn't, we're looking for more attendance, so we thought maybe that would, no, it's just going to work better for the city council meeting. So 4:30, the fourth Thursday, we'll try that for a few months and see if it works, okay? Two items we held in the committee where it has to be, I'll put it under the term of fine-tuned, is the landfill budget and the public museums contract. So that's on hold. There's one action item, Captain Jay's mini golf. We have a new lease coming forward. When I get done, I'll give it to the clerk to read that, and then we'll go from there. We've increased the rent by $500 for 5 years, $500 a month, so, or a year, I'm sorry. So that's in line with our thinking. Report on the golf course, the actual golf course, the Magic Golf Course. They had a good year. The final numbers, I don't know if they're completely done, but the golf course showed a net profit of just around $200,000. So it was a good year. We had a very good year, and so that's great news. And ARPA, we looked at that rather extensively, and that seems to be right on track. And so I am sure that the finance department will be happy when ARPA was done. That's been a lot of work for them, but they've handled it well, and it's done good. And we're on track to spend all the money. And if we don't, it's certainly not the finance departments nor the cities. We tried, and so if something happens, it happens. But so that's my report, and I'll give it back to the clerk to read the lease for the Captain Jay's. Thank you. Any questions? I'll certainly try and answer.
Unless there are any questions, we'll read the recommendation.
It is to approve a lease agreement for Captain Jay's Miniature Golf operating on Barker's Island with a renegotiated annual rent of $3,000 through December 31st, 2028.
Motion is by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Grasky. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 7.5 is the business of the Public Safety Committee with a meeting held on January 16th. Is there a report from the chair?
Yeah, I'm the vice chair, and I had chaired that meeting on January 16th for the Public Safety Committee. So the police and fire, they gave their updates, and the police department highlighted their progress in the transition to hybrid and electric vehicles. In addition, the therapy dog to their outreach team, and hiring of new outreach specialists has been added as well. So they also reported on reduced fatal overdoses due to the expanded Narcan programs. Also talked about the improved SWAT capabilities. The fire department managed an increase in calls. They prepared for cold weather challenges and emphasized recruiting and training with the recognition ceremonies that are scheduled in April. There was also traffic safety improvements that included approval of 2 new 4-way stops at Oaks Avenue and 24th Street and John Avenue and 18th Street. These are to address accidents and enhance pedestrian safety. Night parking restrictions on East 5th Street was also discussed but was deferred for further review. There was a proposal to raise the legal tobacco purchase age to 21. This is so it would align with federal law. It was introduced to address youth vaping. Discussions covered enforcement, vendor communication, and potential programs around that. And further talks are in the future here. Tonight you'll see on the agenda that Kraus Anderson was recommended as the construction manager for Fire Station 2 due to their qualifications, municipal fire project experience, and project approach. They have a proven track record in fire station construction, having completed projects in Burnsville, West Fargo, and Maplewood, as well as the Superior High School project. The city will retain control over future bids throughout the construction process. The fees include 0.15% of the project's hard costs for pre-construction services and 1.85% for construction management and change order management. The design work is set to begin in March 2025, and construction is starting as early as 2026. That is my report.
Unless there are questions for the vice chair, we'll read through the recommendations.
The first is to award a contract with Kraus Anderson for the construction management of a fire station to replace the current Station 2 in the amount of 0.15% of project hard costs for the pre-constructed services, 1.85% for project hard costs for construction management, 1.85% of project hard costs for change orders, and $47,300 per month during the construction of the station, estimated to be 9 months.
Second.
Motion is by Councilor Grasky, second by Councilor Elm. Is there discussion? Here. Other questions for the chief while he's here? Hearing no discussion or questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Number 2 is a recommendation to approve an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 112, Traffic Code Schedule A, stops to add 18th Street and John Avenue as a 4-way stop.
Motion is by Councilor Ludwig, second by Councilor Elm. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
And the third is to approve an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 112, Traffic Code Schedule A, stops to add 24th Street and Oaks Avenue as a 4-way stop.
Motion is by Councilor Herrick, second by Councilor Ludwig. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 8.1.1 is the business of the Redevelopment Authority with a meeting held on January 28th. Is there a report from this group?
I don't believe we have the chair here, but I'll introduce this very briefly. This is, I don't know if it's the first, but one of the earliest of our development agreements for relocating businesses impacted by the Blotnick Bridge. It's a development agreement for Superior, Lidgerwood, Mundy. Very specifically, the assistance we're providing in that move that is provided by the tax increment district that they're moving into. That's the, I think everything else is covered in the memo and the documents, but if there are questions, we have the owners and our planning department here to answer them. Otherwise, what is your pleasure? Motion is by Councilor Herrick, second by Councilor Johnson. Are there questions or discussion? Councilor Fennessy.
Would this be a pay-as-you-go like we normally do, or would this be an upfront just because of all of a sudden this expense?
This is pay as you go, correctly? Yeah. I think we've got a pretty firm policy of always pay as you go, but it's a fair question.
Perfect.
Councilor Moffett.
I just was hoping for a little bit more detail about this. I was trying to look through the contract. It looks like there's a substantial amount of public dollars going into this, and I was just kind of curious about the return. And also, we talked on some levels at the city about retaining property and doing land leases on projects, and this doesn't seem to be the case on this project. But also, I couldn't find a map for the project. Like, there's a property description, but do we have some of that other additional information?
Mr. Sirk, if you want to answer what you can.
Yeah, I can certainly answer. So essentially, this is about a $20 million investment, probably around a $9 to $10 million tax effect on the district. We are looking at, yes, there is a substantial public amount on this. Soil corrections out in this area, as well as utility extensions and things like that to pay for. This is a relocation project. Lidgerwood was not more or less prepared for this, and this is something that has been kind of hard for them, and they could certainly answer those questions. I can get you a map, Garner, for sure, Councilor Moffett, and essentially it's in our Winter Street Industrial Park. It's more or less adjacent to Hallett Dock, just to the west of that, about 8.2 acres. We will be maintaining access to the shoreline. We are also maintaining some access to a neighboring lot as well, so for access to the shoreline for future use. So we are taking those precautions into hand.
I would only add that, while there certainly is an incentive, we want to attract businesses and help them locate when we can. The main question that we have to answer, that the council is evaluating when we give an incentive in a tax increment district, is about the land itself and whether this meets the but-for argument. So what we have to evaluate is, would this land have developed if we hadn't given the incentive? That's what you decide. Generally, the reason that we felt it had met that was because, one, first and foremost, it's been vacant for a very long time. Nobody has attempted to develop it. It's been in RAC's ownership, city ownership. I don't believe we've ever been approached to develop on that land. The second, of course, is the challenges for development that Jason mentioned, which probably contributes to why it hasn't developed. Any other questions, Councilor Moff?
Yeah, I mean, without seeing a map or knowing how it's situated, it's hard to tell. Like, do we know, like, is there like a wetland credit situation going on with this site and some other things, or is that, and then, because I'm assuming that's the case in most of our sites in the city at this point. And then also just kind of curious, again, back to that public benefit component, because there's such a substantial public investment into this project. Like, do we have guarantees on wages for the future for employees, or the number of positions, or like what is the anticipated economic impact of the project, and how can we weigh that against the gift of the public gift here,
Sorry, I can certainly have Kent Phillips come up and talk a little bit about the impact. There are a few wetlands on the site. The layout of it we've taken that into account, but there will be some small impacts. I think what we need to consider is a retention of jobs. When this first came out, and I kind of told the story at Redevelopment Authority, these folks have been in existence for about 150 years. Been in Superior for about almost 80. They make big things. They don't like to publicize what they make, but they make big things, and their investment in these things, working either with the United States government and retaining the employees, is something I think that we need to make sure that we look at. From an investment side, $20 million of tax payment to us to help out not only with incentives for them, but also when Mayor Payne came on, one of the main things was, hey, how can we also leverage TIF districts for other things, whether it be sidewalks, access improvements, road improvements, and now broadband. We are inserting those into our TIF plans. So these are some things that we found important, and we can generate that. Acadia made possible the 28th Street beautification project that we've done. So these are just some things that we're trying to make sure that we're stepping forward and doing that. If Kent wants to come up and talk a little bit about impacts, certainly do that if you're interested in that.
But before I have him walk all the way up, first I'd see if you have questions for him. But I want to make sure to note that these projects, and you're going to see a few more in TIF districts, they're not the same as a lot of our other TID projects, because it's not about creating something new. It's about preserving something that already exists. And so, to a certain extent, that's the question: do we want to invest in making sure that this business stays here? My answer to that is yes, of course. That's why I'm recommending this. But there are some benefits over and on top of that. First, we don't know that we're getting that land back from underneath the bridge. I hope that we'll be able to, but that's a question we can't even approach till the 2030s. And so I've approached the DOT about trying to get right of first refusal. It's all statutory. It's going to be tough to do that. So we don't know the future. Whether that land that we're losing to the bridge, whether we'll ever get it back, whether it can ever be developed. The others, that the structures that are being replaced and not being picked up and moved, those are very old structures that will go away. There's new and more value on this site than existed on the original site. So this is an increase in the tax base that in the early term, I will be very candid about, sometimes it is a concern to put something in a TID because you're locking up a lot of tax value for a very long time. And so we're taking tax value that's been on the rolls and we're putting it in a TID. But as Jason said, we will have access to a lot of that revenue. Some of it is going to them to help them with the development, but we get the rest. At some point it does come back on the tax rolls, but we can deploy that to that surrounding area to help with a lot of projects. I think that's the best answer I can give you. Councilor Sweeney.
I would just like to thank the owners for having faith to stay in Superior. I know they've been a quiet, good corporate citizen for a long time, so thank you for showing confidence and staying in Superior. We appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, the question is on adoption of the resolution approving the development agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item 8.2 is reports without recommendations. At this time, are there any further committee or commission reports to be made?
Council Ludwig.
Yes, I have a report on the Urban Forestry Tree Board meeting from January 16th. First of all, we took the time at the beginning of the meeting to thank former Parks, Rec, and Forestry Director Linda Cadott for her years of service to the City of Superior. Board members made a contribution to the city's tribute tree program, and this spring a tree will be planted in Central Park in her honor. In other business, we increased the tree removal convenience fee from $50 per diameter inch to $100 per diameter inch to more closely reflect the actual expense of removing an existing tree and replacing it with a new tree at a different location. Approximately 250 trees are currently in the bidding process for this coming season's tree planting. Current plan is that trees will be planted in East End, North End, and along the Hayes Court area. Our application to keep our Tree City USA designation has been submitted to the Arbor Day Foundation for approval, and plans are currently in the works for our annual Arbor Day celebration. The Urban Forestry Tree Board will finalize those details at our February 20th meeting. And one last item, we are working on updating our tree planting standards, which includes suggested tree species. That is my report for our January 16th meeting. Any questions?
Any questions for the chair? Thank you, Councilor. Any further committee or commission reports? Hearing none, we're moving on to new business, right? Yeah.
Item 10.1, I'm recommending approval of miscellaneous licenses.
Motion is by Councilor Herrick, second by Councilor Grasky. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.2, I'm recommending approval of a temporary Class B wine license application for the Friends of Superior Public Library's Love Your Local Artist event to be located at 1530 Tower Avenue from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on February 7th.
Motion by Councilor Moffett, second by Councilor Elm. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.3, I'm recommending conditional approval of original Class B liquor and Class B beer license application for Alice's Palace located at 1108 Tower Avenue for the license period July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
Motion is by Councilor Grasky, second by Councilor Johnson. Councilor, just want to say I had one of the news outlets reach out to ask for an interview on this subject, and between the two of us, we weren't able to make that happen. So I just want to say I do endorse this application. I appreciate the new owner of that building, where you may remember we gave a provisional license with some conditions last year. So I appreciate him working with me on those conditions, but he fully owns the building now. We checked on that. There's a couple other boxes he needs to check before we actually issue the license, but he's moved forward in good faith. I have confidence that he's going to make a good go of this in a way that is protects the safety of the community. So thank you for your patience on that, and thank him for his patience on that. Any discussion or questions? Councilor Elm.
Thanks for that update. I was kind of curious. It's been about a year now. But the deed is now under Alice's Properties LLC. Is he, I see he's listed on here as registered agent, but is he the full owner of that LLC?
Yeah, we checked that, right?
Yeah, he's the only member and agent of the LLC.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Well, again, I have confidence that this is going to be a well-run, safe place. If it's not, we will review it when it's not, as with all applicants. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the application, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item 10.4, Community Development Manager Anderson is recommending approval of a resolution to set a public hearing to request comments on community development needs and fair housing choices.
Motion by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Elm. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item 10.5, Counselor Fennessy and Counselor Johnson are recommending approval of a resolution to support an act to amend 281.61 2RE of the Wisconsin State Statutes relating to the use of federal capitalization grant funds for lead service line replacement.
Motion is by Counselor Johnson, second by Counselor Fennessy. Discussion. Counselor Moffett.
All right, just a second. I'll pull my comments up here. So I've got quite a bit listed here, and I'll just start going through it, and I'm sure people might have questions. Just talking a little bit about health effects, I think everyone recognizes that exposure to lead can cause multiple body symptoms, is particularly harmful to young children and women of childbearing age. In particular, lead can permanently affect a child's brain development, resulting in reduced intelligence, behavioral changes, including reduced attention span and increased antisocial behavior, and reduced educational attainment, et cetera, a lot of other things as well, and can get pretty serious. There's no known safe blood lead concentration, so like any level of lead is bad news. I found this other article from the American Journal of Public Health, and it talks about history of lead pipes. Lead pipes for carrying drinking water were well recognized as a cause of lead poisoning by the late 1800s in the United States. By the 1920s, many cities and towns were prohibiting or restricting their use. And to combat this trend, the lead industry carried out a prolonged and effective campaign to promote the use of lead pipes. Led by the Lead Industries Association, representatives were sent to speak with plumbers, organizations, local water authorities, architects, and federal officials. And the authority also published numerous articles and books that extolled the advantages of lead over other materials and gave practical advice on the installation and repair of lead pipes. Their activities over several decades therefore contributed to the present-day public health and economic cost of lead water pipes. I'm not sure how long Superior Water, Light, and Power continued to install lead lines. I didn't have time to look in their data for that. I do know that in 1978, lead paint was banned, and in 1984, Wisconsin banned any new lead in pipes. In 1986, Congress amended the Safe Drinking Water Act to prohibit the use of lead in new plumbing systems. So Congress caught up with Wisconsin in 86. For over 40 years, Superior Water, Light, and Power has continued to raise prices as frequently as possible, but didn't as much as create a survey of where the lead lines were. The excess money went to shareholders. In 2024, Superior Water, Light, and Power finally put together a map of where some of the lead lines are located as required by the state. Under new federal guidelines, they're supposed to create a plan to replace them within 10 years. They also lobbied for an 18% water rate increase. None of this money is designated to replace lead lines, which would be an additional cost. In 2024, Councilor Van Sickle and Mayor Payne and others joined me in speaking up for our residents, fighting for a reduction in the rate increase and fighting for safe water for our residents at a fair price. We have the only privately owned water utility in the state. It's not better water. In fact, many other places have already replaced or are starting to replace or have already replaced or are replacing lead lines. Superior Water, Light, and Power doesn't have a plan to replace them. They keep telling our residents that on Facebook, which is interesting. The city is starting this year on some limited replacements, which is great. The issues with Superior Water, Light, and Power are not just about lead lines. There's rate increases. The city and townships of Superior are the only revenue source for Superior Water, Light, and Power. They have to wait 2 years between rate increases. They ask for more than they want, knowing that the state will lower the increase. We pay the second highest water rate in the state. The first has a temporary increase to cover a capital expense project. The rest of the water utilities aren't even close. And this is without the lead pipe replacement plans. Cost increases. Private utilities make more money from capital expense projects than from monthly rates. Superior Water, Light, and Power doesn't have to use the lowest bid, and because they can mark up the cost of projects, why take the lowest one? If you mark it up 10% and someone else is paying, that'd be us residents, Why not get 10% of a bigger number? Fire risk. The water volume is inadequate in some areas to properly fight fires. This issue is a safety concern. We've seen what happens in LA with inadequate coverage from inadequate hydrants, but it also raises our insurance rates. So once again, our citizens pay more, so Superior Water, Light, and Power's owners can make more profit at our risk and expense. Lack of transparency. We don't get to go to their meetings, but they get to sit in on ours. We can't see a lot of their operations. We can't make sure they're making sound judgments to protect public health. The new owners are partially private equity with even less public disclosure required. Last winter in Madison, I met with utility experts to learn more about the sector and what options the city may have. It was a very valuable meeting. Since sharing what I know with Councilor Van Sickle, the chair of the Public Works, and Mayor Payne, I have never wavered from the goal that this utility should be a public asset, not a private monopoly. I had already found State Statute Chapter 197, Municipal Acquisition of Utilities. Councilor Van Sickle found a lot of additional research and reports filed with the Public Services Commission, and Mayor Payne took the lead on combating the proposed rate increase. The Superior Public Works Committee has already been moving forward with finding additional expertise to show a detailed purchase plan to the public so they can decide if they want Superior Water, Light, and Power to maintain control or to have a public water utility like every other community in the entire state. I expect that the city will be ready to propose a detailed plan to the public within 1 year. Superior Water, Light, and Power doesn't qualify for the grants, but when we buy the utility, we do. And the revenue from the grant sources would likely be more than the cost of the water utility. So either we buy it and get grants, or Superior Water, Light, and Power increases our rates for the new pipes, and then we can't afford to buy it, and we have a never-ending cycle of rate increases every 2 years. Either way, we pay, but buying the water utility is less expensive and allows us to protect public health first, while Superior Water, Light, and Power has been focused on profit and extracting wealth from our community. Furthermore, if loans are needed to finance this work, the city can take out bonds at a much lower rate than Superior Water, Light, and Power, again, giving the city an advantage for funding this work and keeping costs down. Flash forward to 2020-25. Douglas County Commissioner said a couple weeks ago that I think the Superior Water, Light, and Power professionals are doing a bad job. I really thought a lot about that in their feedback, and I thought that they're not doing a bad job because they're not doing the job of a public utility. They're doing the job of a private one. Let me clarify. They have a responsibility to their owners to maximize profit. In order to do that, they have to mitigate risks like state fines, so it's in their interest to maximize profit within the framework of state laws. Our goal is to provide great service, in this case water quality, to our residents at a fair price. These are not compatible goals. I thought more about this, though, after that, and while this is absolutely the case, that they're acting in their interests, not the customers, the commissioner's probably right. I do think they're doing a bad job in that way also. Private utilities make small profit margins off of their monthly rates, but where they really are able to maximize profits is through marking up administrative costs or marketing costs on capital expense projects. Buy a new truck as soon as the other one is depreciated. Don't pick the inexpensive one, then mark it up with your administrative cost. So the Superior Water, Light, and Power solar project is a great example of this. They offered really poor buyback rates for customers who wanted to install their own solar. You can't let people have energy independence. That's bad for the bottom line. So to meet the market, they created a community solar project. They paid subcontractors to do the install work, marked it all up, and now charge customers an inflated rate from what the project actually costs to install. This is where they're pushing now. With us paying higher than ever rates, they want to create a new revenue source, state and federal funds. This legislative change is about profit, not about lead poisoning. Some important things about this proposal. First of all, it's a waste of our political capital. Even if the council unanimously supported it, no one else in the state legislature would want to support it because it puts their small public utilities in direct competition for grants with a multinational for-profit private equity firm. It is unclear how much of the revenue would stay for lead lines and what the administrative and marketing costs would be, and they aren't subject to public meetings like us or every other water utility in the state. Second of all, the grant money might not even exist. Again, if the proposal was passed, it's currently unclear the state of federal funding sources for this work, or if the lead replacement issue will disappear for another decade because of the current federal politics. Number three, this proposal will directly cost taxpayers significantly more money if they choose to buy the utility. Any new pipes increase the value of the utility assets, which the city then has to buy. Superior Water, Light, and Power could potentially get a grant, spend more on a higher bidder, then hand the bill over to us to pay when we buy the pipes from them. Any money that comes in grants to them ends in a direct bill for our residents if we buy the utility. And if they mark it up during the process, we'll actually have spent more money than if we installed the pipes ourselves without the markup and with a lower bid. If this was about lead poisoning, significantly more lead exposure is in paint dust. Why aren't we working with the county to boost the fund to deal with lead paint? The county is doing some of that work. Why aren't we applying for those grants? And why didn't we get this brought up for the last several decades when there was funding, but before we started a process to propose protecting our residents' health and pocketbooks by buying the utility? Superior Water, Light, and Power sponsors the pool at the YMCA. They sponsor Superior Days. They sponsor other things in the community. Except when you think about it for a minute, they don't. We do. All of their money is coming from us as ratepayers. We're the only revenue source. It's a way to buy your loyalty, is if you have a choice. But it's also worked. Superior residents have been forced customers for over 100 years. This isn't capitalism, because it's a legal monopoly without a free market. And it's not motivated by public interest, because it isn't owned by the public. It's truly the worst of all scenarios. We have a shared responsibility to accept the blame for this health risk in our community. No Superior Water, Light, and Power or community leaders have acted on this lead line issue for the last century. A year for citizens now to have a voice won't make a significant difference in community health, but it would greatly hurt the ability to fix this problem by creating a public water utility that everyone in the state already has, except for us, and our children deserve. This will not be the only water quality issue. We also have to deal with microplastics, pharmaceutical products, PFAS, and increased estrogen levels, among other things. Water issues are complex, and this seemingly simple solution to one problem isn't a solution at all, and it damages the real public interest of high-quality water at a reasonable cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I urge you guys today to pass this critical resolution to support this bill. An act to amend 28161 to RE of the state statutes relating to the federal grants for lead service line is a seemingly small change, and I agree with Councilor Moffitt. It does have profound implications for our residents of Superior. Councilor Moffitt did a great job of outlining the health concerns of lead. The neurotoxin, we know it disproportionately affects our children. As a teacher here in Superior, I take that very seriously. It can lead to irreversible cognitive defects, learning disabilities, and behavior problems. We know that the aging pipes in our city have lead in them, exposing our residents to that threat. We know the problem, we have the fix, and the means to fix that. This bill addresses the critical funding gap that disproportionately affects Superior residents. Currently, the federal capitalization grants through Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, DWSRF, can be used for various improvements in the water systems and principal forgiveness, which is a vital tool for making these improvements. It is prohibited. Superior Water, Light, and Power is prohibited because it's a privately owned water system. This creates a significant barrier to the residents of Superior. This amendment removes that barrier. It allows those capitalization grants to be used for principal loan forgiveness, specifically for lead service lines, and even for the private water owners like Superior Water, Light, and Power. This change incentivizes and accelerates the need that we have in our community. And the data speaks for itself. We know that the EPA estimates that there are millions of lead service lines still in use across our country, in Wisconsin, and we know now for sure where they are in Superior. And then there is a direct correlation between the lead service lines, elevated blood lead levels, and particularly in children, leading to health costs at a staggering rate, putting a significant burden on our families and healthcare system. And this is not just a public health issue, it's an economic one. Lead exposure diminishes a child's potential, impacting their educational attainment, future earning capacities. It affects the property values. It undermines our community development projects that we saw here today, investing in our future of our community. For customers, the average cost of replacing their portion could reach $10,000 or more. It's a prohibited cost for many families. This principal loan forgiveness through the DWSRF, can't believe I got those letters right there, could save these customers approximately 50% of that cost. Speaking to the DNR today, they believe that we could have 75% of that cost forgiven for our residents. Some areas will qualify for 100% forgiveness. This bill is practical. It's fiscally responsible. By leveraging those funds, we can maximize the impact of our investment, accelerate the pace of lead line replacement. It's a common sense approach. We must act now. This is a limited time opportunity. These funds are only around through 2027. Councilor Moffitt's indicated that we might be able to purchase Superior Water, Light, and Power, and we may have something for the residents here in the next year. We don't have time to wait. I know that purchasing a water utility might be an option, and I'm not completely opposed to that. But there are so many unknowns. What is the actual cost to purchase the utility? What about the timeline for purchasing that utility? Securing the necessary funds to purchase that, securing the necessary funds for not only the subsequent employees, but the subsequent potential infrastructure improvements that we need to make as a city if we own that utility. These are significant questions that we do not have answers to at this time. In contrast, we have a reasonable, common sense approach, a bill that offers a concrete path forward. It leverages those federal funds to make immediate progress. In fact, this is an issue that we brought down less than 12 months ago to Madison and asked our legislators to make this change. Here in front of us today, we have exactly what we have asked those legislators to do as part of our lobbying efforts. What message does that send to our state leaders and to our community if we go back on what we have been asking for? We owe it to our citizens and future generations of our city to act now. I urge you to support this critical step in eliminating lead from our drinking water. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilor Vansickle.
Thank you. We're talking about the SDWLP, Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. So over the course of 2024, we did a lot of work with utilities. And one of the things we did was study this issue. We spent months, most of 2024 in the Public Works Committee discussing lead lines. And the other part of our work was intervening on the water rate increase. Water, Light, and Power asked for an 18% increase on their water rates, and they seem to really take offense that their water supply or that their pipe systems were somehow unsafe. So that was only in the fall, I want to say September, they had filed a brief really indignant that we would accuse them of having an unsafe drinking water source. Now, here we are. And some of the things we discussed were some of the detrimental effects that we've seen, particularly in school systems where public funds went to private institutions. And we've seen how well that has played out. And because we have spent so much time studying this, something that we learned was that last year, the city of Ashland had their water rates increased by 44%. we still pay more than them. That is a capital cost for their intake, so all of that will fall off. Ours never does. Another important distinction here is that while the Water, Light, and Power is asking for state grants in order to replace what they are now referring to as some kind of emergency, there is no guarantee that they would get access to the 0.25 interest that's available, or that they would even have access to principal forgiveness. Because what is true is that residents do absolutely have access to federal and state grants. The entity is what is not eligible, rightfully. They are a $4 billion Minnesota-based company whose CEO takes home $3.5 million a year. They're not eligible for grants, rightfully. These are things that we discussed. Now, the DNR expressed a real concern because the loan burden is so high. So that is what really triggers the unknowing that they would somehow get a grant. What is more so guaranteed is that the resident would get the principal forgiveness. So essentially what this does is offer the residents a 25% bill from the private utility. So whatever they would charge on the utility side, we'd be offering a 25% of that bill. However, the City of Superior has already put plans together to cover those for residents. So the difference here is zero if the municipality does it and just builds it into the street project, or 25% of what Water, Light, and Power would charge. We know because of our rates being so unconscionable and what we pay for water in this town, I'm happy that this has come to the forefront because people have been so rightfully skeptical that somehow Water, Light, and Power would be working to lower their rates because there's no evidence that they have ever done that before. For example, when we intervened on their rate case, they fought us tooth and nail every single turn to get that full 18% increase. We were able to hold them to 11%, but the costs here are really important to note because when you average how much lead service lines cost to replace, Water, Light, and Power is saying that this will be a $10,000 burden on residents. That's, of course, not feasible or true because residents get principal forgiveness. They, however, do not. That is the difference here. And when you average out the state lead service line replacement on the utility side or the private side, it only comes out to $4,200 with a municipal contract. So what the councilors are proposing is the absolute messiest and most expensive way to do it. Quite frankly, having just come back from Madison from a League of Wisconsin board meeting, those leaders were very concerned because across the 25th Senate District, there are 29,000 lead lines on the waiting list to be replaced that this private company, for profit, would somehow jump in front of all of them because they don't have $4 billion or BlackRock's $12 trillion in the bank. They don't have that available to them. So last year, the state of Wisconsin introduced more than 2,200 bills. I hope that we don't have to discuss them here on the floor. But I think what is most jaw-dropping in all of the work and all of the research we have performed, what to me feels most like the front page scandal is that I learned Water, Light, and Power actually does have access to state and federal loan programs. The exact same 0.25 interest rate that we get as a municipality, that ESD gets as a public unit, they have access to state and federal money now. And according to the DNR, they have had it for years. And I quote, they've never taken an interest in applying. Because why would they apply for 0.25 interest when they get 10.
Further discussion. Counselor Fennessy.
It's wild to me the amount of time and energy that's it's apparently been spent to try and wordsmith and twist the facts and try and distract from the actual what this resolution is all about. But in an effort to distract from the main purpose of this resolution, it seems we're confusing 2 or 3 or 4 different issues here. There seems to be a distaste for Superior Water, Light, and Power, which is fine if that's your opinion. But this resolution has nothing to do with us purchasing water, light, and power. This resolution has nothing to do with that. This resolution simply is to allow us to use the federal funds. And so we're trying to distract from the actual core of this resolution in an effort to twist this in some weird way. Also, the point that Jenny Van Sickle made about the residents being eligible already for federal grants is absolutely false. Excuse me? I've got the floor.
Counselor Fennessy has the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. Because the residents do have to go through a utility for these grants right now. We have an opportunity right now to throw our support behind a change to the state statute, where shortly after that change happens, it'll open the door for federal dollars to come into Superior to assist with the financial burden of replacing lead lines. But instead of excitement about the possibility of federal dollar assistance, I'm hearing resistance. There have been many solutions thrown around for this lead pipe problem, but this solution here, without a doubt, brings the most federal dollars into Superior the quickest, and it would make the most meaningful impact on a broader scale to eliminate lead lines than any other solution that's been put forth to date. But today isn't the first time that we've heard resistance from this body towards a solution for replacing lead lines. A little over 2 years ago, I made a motion to allocate $1 million to assist homeowners in the replacement of their lead lines. That motion failed by this body because it would have pulled those funds from broadband. 2.5 months ago, I proposed an amendment to the budget that would provide $1.5 million in funding to assist homeowners in their lead line replacement. Again, failed because apparently broadband is a greater priority than lead line replacement. This issue was also fought with resistance as a Superior Days issue in bringing the lead line issue down to Madison as one of the top issues. You guys were successful in that fight as 3 other issues rose to the top that you're going down to Madison with. And now today, instead of supporting a change that would allow federal dollars to come into Superior to replace lead lines, we're holding these federal dollars hostage while we try and play entrepreneur in hopes of getting into the water business. And then, and only then, once the city owns the water utility, we would then allow those federal dollars to come into Superior. It's easy to play the role of entrepreneur when you're doing it with taxpayer dollars. But when you play that role in this particular situation, and until you get to that finish line, which will take multiple years to complete a transaction like that, you're expecting the residents of Superior and the city council to just sit on our hands and hope that we're able to shift the ownership of the water from public to private, or from private to public. That the message that sends to the residents is to just patiently keep drinking the water from your lead lines while your city attempts to get into the water business. So forgive me if I don't have a lot of confidence in the city's entrepreneurial spirit, because looking back at some of our most recent business ventures, we purchased the Carnegie Library almost 3 years ago, and it still sits vacant today in no better shape than the day we bought it, aside from a non-period specific roof that's been placed on the top. Same exact scenario plays out in the Palace Theater, where that's still sitting vacant with no plan. 5 years ago, Mayor Payne and Councilor M put out a press release announcing the city was going to enter into the broadband business. And although we have literally spent millions of dollars on it, not a single ISP is under contract to date, not a single home has been connected, and we don't even know how much it's going to cost the residents a month on their monthly bill. So multiple business ventures have been started, resulting in none of them bearing fruit. And now you want the residents of Superior to patiently wait until we can get into the water business. This change to the state statute is the fastest way to see the removal of lead lines, because offering to fund homeowners, your proposal, Mayor Payne, last meeting, offering to fund homeowners' water lines that just so happen to live along a street that we tear up, that can't be the answer, because next year we're going to replace 12 homes, and those 12 homes that just happen to be located along one of the roads that we're completely ripping up. And with that strategy, there is no way we're going to hit all the homes in Superior by that deadline. Not by doing 12 a year, and there's a lot of homes in areas that aren't on the radar for replacement. So it's incredibly disingenuous to look at that as a solution and celebrate that as a solution when it's only 12 homes. This opportunity would replace many, many more than just 12. Every other municipality in Wisconsin has the ability to take advantage of these funds. It's only logical that we should have that same opportunity. A yes vote to this resolution sends a message of support to the legislature that we need these grants. A no vote to this resolution sends a message that we're better off not assisting the homeowners with grants. Thank you.
Further discussion, Councilor Elm.
Is this WLMP in the room tonight?
Not aware. I don't know.
I would think that if this was important to them, they would be here. That's kind of strange.
Councilor Elm has the floor.
So, yeah, I don't think this council is opposed to replacing the lead lines. There's just different paths forward on this. And I think when it comes to the narrative, it's being skewed. We can talk about broadband, but those proposals, I recall, were brought up out of thin air with no collaboration, no plan. There was half a dozen other proposals as well. And that's not about the lead lines, but just giving some context of trying to paint the image that we are against removing lead lines is incorrect. We want to remove the lead lines. We have a lot of other things we're working on at the same time. Bringing this resolution forward, it feels kind of unusual because this is an issue between SWLMP and the state. I guess I'd like some context of what does this do? It's here. We all know what lead lines issues are, but can you guys give me some context? I was hoping SWLMP could give some narrative here. What does this do? Does this guarantee replacing lead lines quicker? I understand that in the attachment in the agenda, they state that this could save 50% on residents. That sounds great, but what's the guarantee of that, and why can't it be more? I'm curious of a little more information, because this could be more enticing if perhaps they support 90% of it. That would make it more affordable, or maybe some direction of financing to the citizens as well. This deal could be sweetened more for the citizens. So I guess I have a lot of questions still. I'm not sure, what is the timeline of this? I know this bill's on the state level. Where are we going with it? What are the pros and cons? And at the end of the day, I know we're talking about cost and saving money, but the citizens' health is on the line here, and we need to keep that in mind as well. So I need more information. I have more questions, but I just wanted to throw a little bit of the perspective of the narrative where we're at, and my question is where we're going, and how do we get there fastest and help our citizens and save them money at the same time.
Councilor Sweeney.
Thank you. The mission tonight is to talk about whether or not we put forth a resolution to support Superior Water Light. I'm going to try to stick within that mission. It may be difficult, but stop me if I tend to move into another area. There are three main areas where the lead line, where the water goes. The main line down most streets. Then there's a hookup from the main approximately to across the sidewalks to the private property, and then from the private property into the house, those three. The main line is 100%, there's no lead in that line at all. There is 8% lead lines in the homes from the private home property into the house. And there is 38% lead in the connections between the main and the private property. So what that amounts to, I don't know. But that's, so there is no lead in the main line. And the spare water light, we haven't had a lead poisoning since the 70s. And that was at Fraser Shipyard. And according to the county, the latest information I have, there have been 6 lead poisoning cases, all of them in Douglas County. They were in Douglas County, but not one of them was in the city of Superior, other than at Fraser Shipyard. So what I'm saying there is we tend to put emotion into this, but people aren't, our children, and I'm as concerned about my children, grandchildren, as anyone. But there has not been a reportable case of lead poisoning for all these years. The Water and Light has done things to mitigate that, okay? And so the reason we're doing it is because I think the federal government, through some agency, has mandated that all lead lines be changed, okay? So I get that. We have to follow that rule. But to say that it's a panic and we have to change these lines is not accurate. I'm along with Councilor, a number of other councilors. I have numbers of questions. I have 27 questions. I'm not going to ask them all. But my question is there a better way to do this? I don't know if there's a better way to do it or not. I suspect that there may be, there may not be. I would have thought that Superior Water, Light, and Power would have at least proposed some form of a eagle's eye view of what they're going to do, okay? I hear it's going to cost $10,000 per home, okay? That's the item, that's the figure they've used. I've talked to 2 contractors, both of them said under $5,000, okay? I don't know which one is accurate, but there's a right number there somewhere. The 38% of the lead lines that are the connectors between the main line and the residential line, back when the city put them in, they put them, or I mean the Water Light, I understand they put them every 25 feet. With the idea they're putting them in, they might as well put them on every 25 feet because that's where a home could go. I live on a 175-foot lot, so I have 3 of them in my home, my property. 2 of them are not being used, okay? Now, they may have to come out. I'm not disagreeing with that. So I don't know where that 38%, that must be in that total somewhere. So all the information, it's tough to get accurate information, and I'm for waiting and I'm for reviewing this stuff, and I think that Minnesota Power Spare Water Light at least should give us a view of what they think it's going to cost. What is the homeowner going to pay? Are they going to pay $10,000? Are they going to pay? Is there going to be a 50%? I heard at one time there's going to be a 50%. The Water Light's going to give you 50, and you're going to pay for 50. Well, $5,000 for a lot of people is a lot of money. And I heard they may finance the second half, the 5%. Then I heard it may go down to $4,800. So there's a whole lot of information that I have information, but I don't think I have accurate information, nor do I have enough information. So I would be in favor of putting this on hold until we get a clear, exact idea where we're going here. What's it going to cost our homeowner? How can we best serve the homeowner? And if we can get them at 0 cost, and I realize there may be some CBDG money that we can help people who are lower income people, and that's fine, okay? But for us to, and I know the Water Light, a couple of people said, well, if you vote for it, then we'll tell you what we're going to do. Well, that's just not the way that the Finance Committee works, I'm sorry. You know, we spend a lot more time on spending a lot less money than this. So I'm in favor of putting this on hold, get our questions answered, and then if we have to go forward, we'll go forward. Thank you.
Further discussion. Councillor Fennessy.
Not a discussion point for me. I just wanted to know if there was anyone in the audience that had signed up to speak. I know we didn't check that at first. Okay, no, thank you.
Further discussion. Councillor Ludwig.
I wrote down some thoughts here, and so I guess I don't understand why this resolution came to the council floor in the first place. There's a reason why we have protocols, and usually our protocols, our issues are vetted through committee, exactly for all the reasons that have been going through this council tonight. And I wrote down some of my thoughts. Why we vet it through committees is more time for our constituents to gain public awareness of the issue, therefore more transparency, more time to research, gather information, data, and facts on both sides of the issue. Just like Councillor Sweeney just stated, we don't have all the facts. More time to discuss and get questions answered regarding the issues. This resolution has not been fully vetted. Is there a reason why we haven't sent this through committee? Is there some type of a deadline, some type of an emergency that we have to, get this resolution passed tonight? I don't know whether I support this resolution or not because I don't fully know all the facts. I saw documentation, Superior Water, Light, and Power's documentation that was included with this resolution proposal, but there is another side. There's also the side that the city is looking into buying the water utility. Now, a logical person would conclude that if Superior Water, Light, and Power is given grant money to improve their assets, and the purchase price for we as a city, if and when we are in a position to purchase the utility, of course, that would increase the price that we would have to pay. And why would I support tonight? Why would I support a resolution that maybe in the long run would end up costing the city and therefore our taxpayers more in the long run? I, as a homeowner, I have lead lines going into my home. So I, as a homeowner, have questions. If the law is changed and the grant funds are distributed, how will those grant funds be distributed? Would they be distributed to Superior Water, Light, and Power? And in that case, I don't think I trust Superior Water, Light, and Power to improve my lead lines before they improve their own. And so again, how would those funds be distributed? And if I as a homeowner only get 50% of the funds to put towards getting rid of my lead lines, how do I finance the other portion of 50% to be able to afford it? So, in conclusion, I am not going to support this resolution because I do not have all the facts in front of me to be able to support it. So, thank you.
Councillor Grasky.
Okay. I know we've said a lot. I know we've gone in many different directions, and I think I feel a lot like many councillors up here that I have a lot of questions. But I think what gets me the most is we create relationships with our constituents. We hear from them, we listen to them. In my past 5 days, we're trying to answer questions like, how contaminated with lead is the water Superior Water, Light, and Power is supplying? Is it safe to drink? Is it going to be lead out of my pipe? Is Superior Water, Light, and Power responsible for water testing? Can they come and test my water? Does that become a cost? I want to point out to the two authors that put forth this resolution that you have a responsibility to make sure that if you want something to pass, you should have made sure that we had all of the information. What this entails is it kind of creates, unfortunately, an opportunity for political grandstanding, and unfortunately causes confusion among residents. And my fear is putting this on the 11th hour added in It promises insignificant change without a clear implementation plan, creating unrealistic expectations for constituents to be misled. I don't think the conversation is done, but I do want to point out that it is your responsibility, if you're going to put forth a resolution, that you have all of the facts. We are dealing with now with some chaos that has happened throughout our community. We see it in our comment section. We see it in posts. We get phone calls about it. Now we have another problem. So I hope that you can take the responsibility to make sure that this council is set with the proper information that they need in order to make an educated decision.
Councillor Fennessy.
There's been a couple questions on what the purpose of this, how we got here, all of that, and in between a lesson on how to counsel by Councillor Grasky. So thank you for that. But I guess to answer the question of why here, why not a committee first, why not any of that, is more times, yeah, we have policies and procedures. More times than not, resolutions just come right to the council floor. Most of the time, resolutions, more times than not, by a pretty fair margin, the resolutions just come to the council and they're not vetted through a committee. To answer Councilor Ludwig's question, though, if there isn't a deadline, we didn't put this on the agenda here, and I would argue it wasn't at the 11th hour. It came on the agenda on Thursday, and there was plenty of time to ask questions. Nobody reached out to me, but there is no urgency. I'm just glad we're at least having the conversation about a solution. And if we want to take another postpone this to another meeting, absolutely, because I'd rather that we get all the questions answered, instead of just voting one way or another. And then Councilor Elm, you had asked what the purpose of this. I think we're overcomplicating this. All this is a resolution of support that sends a message to the state that says we want this one sentence in the state statute changed so we can receive the federal grants. And there was also the question about it could be reimbursed up to 50%. It could be why not more? Why only 50%? I want to clarify. It's not Water, Light, and Power that determines how much of the reimbursement is. It's the DNR. Superior Water, Light, and Power is only the facilitator of that because they front the upfront cost of the repair, and then they ask for reimbursement from the DNR for that. And it's the DNR that determines whether it's 50%, 60%. In some cases, for low-income individuals, it could be 100%. But it's not Superior Water, Light, and Power that determines that. The other thing that I think is important to clarify is Councilor Ludwig, you asked the question, and it's a valid one. What would prevent Water, Light, and Power from just using these grants to replace now theirs and ignoring the homeowner? The grant process, like I said, it's a reimbursement grant, and this grant that we're asking for the ability to tap into gives preference to the homeowner first, and then if there's money left over, the utility second. So it's a reimbursement grant. The utility company has to submit their plan for this is what we're going to do in 2026. They do that plan, and then they get reimbursed at a rate that the DNR determines. I think that was all of the questions that that at least were brought up. But I want to be clear that in no way are we trying to sneak this in for some political gain. We're just looking out for the residents of Superior, trying to find a meaningful solution for that as quick as possible. And I haven't heard another solution that does this, because if the alternative is we're just going to wait to buy a water utility company, there's no way that we would have that closed by 2026. That not a chance. The last water utility that was purchased in Wisconsin was Beloit, and that took about 2 years to close from start to finish. And that was where both parties one party wanted to sell their water utility, one party wanted to buy it, and it took about 2 years to get that transaction closed. Here, we have one party that says we want to buy your utility, and the other party says we don't want to sell our utility. So if it took 2 years for that to happen in Beloit, it's certainly going to get further and further for this when there's not an agreeable amount or an agreeable conversation between both sides. So if the solution isn't this, the solution certainly can't be let's just wait until 2027, 2028, 2029 when we're finally able to close on to take over the water utility. This provides relief and a solution way quicker than either 12 homes a year or buy a utility in the year 2029.
Councillor Johnson.
I agree. This isn't we need to pass this tonight, and I respect the councilors in the room to give it that time and hopefully get some of those answers to this question. I appreciate Councillor Herrick reaching out to me and having that discussion. A lot of this discussion happened 12 months ago as a Superior Days lobbying effort. Some of you up here, including Councillor Grasky, were lobbying for this change in Madison last year. I feel like we've had some time to ask these questions. I would hope some of those questions were answered, and if you haven't gotten them answered, to do some research and find out what they are. I can certainly help you point you in the right direction on some of the things that I've found. If you reach out and want to have a discussion, I'm more than willing to do that. It wasn't an effort to push forward this for any political reason other than to get some support for our residents. This is the proposal that I see as the quickest, most concrete way forward, and something that we've already lobbied for as leaders in our community. Something that we've already lobbied for in front of our state legislatures, and they have given us what we asked for. And that was the point of this resolution, was to follow through with what we asked for last year down in Madison to support this change. And so I respect your questions. I'm certainly willing to postpone this and try and answer those, or trying to find answers to clarify some of the things that have been said in the room tonight. But it by no means was a way to stir anything up, to gain anything politically. This isn't new. This isn't something that I came up with or Councillor Fennessy came up with at the last minute. We talked about this over 12 months ago down in Madison, asking our legislatures to make this change. And so that was the point of this, is to support those lobbying efforts and not undermine what we've been doing down in Madison. So with that being said, and maybe there's others that need to speak here tonight, and I'll respect that, but with that being said, I'll make a motion to postpone this until our next council meeting.
Motions to postpone to the next city council meeting by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Fennessy. Discussion on the motion to postpone. Councillor Van Sickle.
I just need to at least thank the councilor for bringing up Beloit, because since they purchased their water utility 20 years ago, they pay $1.52 per CCF of water. We pay $6.57 per CCF of water. There's no other water utility in the state that employs lobbyists by WMC. And I agree, I would love to be treated like every other resident in the state of Wisconsin by paying a couple of bucks for the water we can throw a stone to. I'm surprised to hear that this is not being brought up for political reasons, despite the sponsored ads. But I think it is relevant to also say that Superior Water, Light, and Power is saying that they need $44 million to make this change. And their profit and loss sheet, I hope that everybody has taken a look at that number while they're vetting resolutions. they are worth $41 million. If they report $44 million in liability, they are underwater by $3 million. I think we should vote this down. I really do. Thank you.
Counselor Muff.
I agree. I don't want to postpone this. I want to vote it down. You know, we talked about this being an issue for Superior Days last year, and it was. But I was involved with multiple conversations there and with Superior Water, Light, and Power and things. And my understanding at that time was that we were asking the state to allow them to be a pass-through for just the residential portion of the service line. And then that's not what got put in the book. When I got to Superior Days, you know, and had the book and went through everything, so I was prepared to be a lobby leader and help represent our community, I was shocked. And you know, I was really disappointed that they really represented one thing in our conversations about this was about helping our residents and about getting this money through to our residents for their portion of the service lines. And that's not what got put in the book. And so that's not what we ended up saying. And everyone's like, well, it was in the book last year. Well, yeah, but nobody saw the book like, you know, like the book was done. You know, that's not what they said they were putting in the book. It's what ended up in the book. And then that's also not what's in the legislation. This legislature, the bill's in here. Thank you for including it. Of course, it's important to have that in there. It says, you know, this is for replacement of lead service lines. It does not specify that it's for the consumer portion. It does not specify how the money is used. They have a legal ability to mark things up for administrative costs. That's their legal right to do that. They've got marketing fees. They've got legal fees. The fun part is every time we have to deal with one of their lawyers, we're paying for it. You know, and all of this gets added on to our bills, and I'm sick of paying them, and we got to take care of this. But, you know, I really felt like they tried to pull one over on us last year, and they stuck it in the book, and that is not what I expected to be in the book. So also, people talk about, like, what would this cost us? We know what it'll cost us. It's in state statute. It's in Chapter 197. The cost of the utility is the cost of installation minus depreciation of the assets plus a small base rate. So if their assets are listed, you know, they have their own depreciation schedule that they've given to the state. They've listed their physical assets, end of 2023, I think was $23.5 million. And we're going to install more than that in lead pipe replacements. So the utility right now, and the number she's saying too, the utility is cheaper than replacing the lead pipes. And we could get grants to replace the lead pipes. And we wouldn't have rate increases every 2 years. And we could deal with all of the other health things that happen with water, all of the other stuff I listed. It's not just lead. And we don't know exactly that lead poisoning is already happening now. People shouldn't instantly panic. These pipes have been in the ground for 100 years, and most lead poisoning comes from lead paint. If you're concerned about your family's lead safety, get a lead paint testing kit and test that in your house first. That's probably the most likely source of lead poisoning. And then water is something we can look at also. But like, this isn't an emergency. You guys haven't been at the Public Works Committee meetings when we've been discussing this every month. And I don't know how it ended up. It didn't end up there. I have no problem with you bringing forward a resolution to the council. Some of my colleagues might. I'm not going to speak for them. That doesn't bother me at all, except for this issue has been specifically on the agenda of Public Works every month. And so, like, it's not like it's some other thing that, like, you know, didn't apply to that committee or whatever. It's literally been on that agenda. But you didn't go to the meetings. You didn't bring it there.
Counselor, I'd ask you to address the chair.
Sorry. And so, like, you know, I'm confused by that whole thing. And water is not a business. Water is a necessity. We all have to buy it, and we shouldn't have to buy it from a monopoly. Thank you.
Questions whether to postpone. Further discussion on that question. Councillor Sweeney.
We have a roll call, please.
Yes, I have a few things to say, councillors. When I do this, especially if I'm going to speak at any kind of length, I pull up the statute that requires the mayor from time to time to give the council such information and recommend such measures as the mayor may deem advantageous to the city. I recommend against postponing for a very procedural reason. I have a lot to say procedurally about the resolution in front of us, but put simply, this issue is not ready for council. This is a very involved question. Several of us have put a significant amount of time to learn how a complex state funding system works, how the legislature works, why this particular bill was written in the first place, what plans the utility might have for using this money, how they could possibly use it, what controls would be on it, how the city can actually mitigate lead lines. We've been working on that. We've been working on that publicly and privately. I invite you all to those conversations. I have to say I am very disappointed that I had to learn about this via the agenda. You have no obligation to give me a heads up, but I've tried to commit to you that if you tell me what you want to work on, I will help you, even if I disagree. I wish you would give me that opportunity, because at the very least, worst case scenario, you would have heard my arguments on this subject and you would have been better prepared for this meeting. But as you know, this meeting has gone on a while. It's likely to go on a little while longer. And that's why I don't like issues of this complexity that have not been vetted, where nearly every counselor has significant questions. The council is not really designed for that. That's why we have a committee system. It's why our committee system has been doing this work. I am pleased that you all agree that there is no urgency here. But in terms of this resolution, the other thing I would say, why it doesn't belong on the council, not next week, not ever, is because it is incredibly dangerous for us to get involved in legislative issues like this. I think most of the councilors that have been here for a while would all agree with that. Most of you have agreed with that at some point or another. The legislature is a very partisan body, and it does considerable work that has nothing to do with the city of Superior, including this bill. The city's not a party to this bill. I have learned a great deal about it. I will advocate for the city. You are welcome to do that as well. If you disagree with me, you can go to the legislature virtually, most likely. You can write letters. You can lobby them. You can attend the committee hearings if there are any. I encourage you to do that if you feel strongly about this, but please learn about it as I have, because what I have learned about it is that this is a bad bill. This does not benefit the citizens of Superior. It does not replace residential lead lines. I wrote a number of notes, now I'm completely lost, but this utility has had years to replace these lead lines. 50 years. They've had the money. They've known they had them. They've known that they were a health problem. They did nothing. They are still doing nothing. I appreciate the criticism that the city is not doing enough by looking to replace, I think it's more like 20 lead lines on the road projects. That's not all we're going to do this year. I hope to be able to offer indirect funds. Those are some of the things we need to work on. That won't be done just in a city council meeting. But while that may seem like a small number, I totally appreciate that criticism. It must be larger. It must be faster. The utility's done zero. They have plans to do zero. They've announced nothing, not what they're going to do, whether or not this bill passes. For years, they could have done this. It didn't even have to cost them any money. They could have charged no-interest loans, low-interest loans. They could have charged high-interest loans and just let the public pay for it. Just help your customers. Just help your customers. They've refused. They've refused over and over and over. And while they're sending our citizens letters saying that their infrastructure is toxic, potentially dangerous to their health, they're also saying, but we will do nothing until you pay us to do it. Those are just a few of my problems with the bill. The biggest is, please don't give a $4 billion corporation more public money when they haven't even used the money they already have to solve a problem that they admit is a problem. Give that money to the city of Superior. In fact, they already do. The city manages these grant programs. We use all of the programs you're talking about. Every year we apply for these, for different systems, of course, for different utilities, but we're experts at it. We win these grants. We administer these grants. We do private plumbing projects on residential properties every year. We are the experts, and we only work for our citizens. We do not work for investors. That is the only thing Superior Water, Light, and Power will ever do. I know folks think I have a huge problem with the utility, and yeah, I definitely do. They are overcharging our residents, but I don't have any problem with the people that are working there. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is making money for their investors. Every single action they take, if this bill passes, will only serve that goal. They will do this in the most expensive way they possibly can to serve their investors. That is all they have ever done. That is all they are charged with doing. We have only one goal: to serve our residents. We also have access to considerable funding, and most importantly, we have public oversight. While I support the counselors that want more information, I'm happy to provide it. I'm happy to meet with any of you personally to discuss what I've learned on this. I hope you will meet with those counselors that have put in considerable hours over the last 2 years learning about this. We have all met with the utility, several of us, to try and discuss these issues, to try and negotiate, to try and get them to help our residents. They've refused every time. But we are also meeting in public to discuss this. As much as I don't love it, the Public Works Committee meeting goes very late discussing these issues. You are welcome to those meetings. I hope that you'll attend. But lastly, again, counselors, please, if you have something that you want to discuss on the floor, especially if you know that it is going to be as contentious as this, where there are going to be a lot of questions, please give me a chance to help you. I don't have the power to keep it off the agenda. I would just ask the respect, after all the years we have working together, to let me try and make your argument and this process just a bit better. I think I could have helped. Counselors, I recommend against postponing. I don't believe this belongs at City Council in 2 weeks. I don't think this particular resolution ever belongs at City Council. I recommend voting this down and allowing the conversation about how we will replace lead lines to continue in the Public Works Committee, and allowing the conversation about how the utility will be regulated by the state to continue in the legislature where it belongs. I'll try to stay silent. Unless I can answer questions, I'll try to stay silent the rest of this debate, counselors. It was important to me to say that. Councilor Herrick.
Yeah, just a couple things. You know, we went down there last year to lobby for this, and we didn't realize that, coming back, that we were going to pretty much, get into a big debate. We went down there basically for the benefit of the citizens of the city of Superior, and that was to basically, create a safer water system for them and also to achieve funding for them. So with that being said, you talk about helping the citizens of Superior. So my question is, how can we as a city get federal funding for this? I don't think the taxpayers should come up with any of this amount of money, especially if it's regulated by the federal government. How can we and where can we get federal dollars for this without going through this resolution phase?
I can't give you involved answers to all of your questions. That is why, again, I recommend we discuss these issues in committee where we can really get into it. And, of course, we can be a bit better prepared to answer them. Off the top of my head, Counselor, one, we are already qualified for significant federal funding, including CDBG program, where we can start investing into the neighborhoods that have the most lead lines right away. We can direct those funds that way. The second, I don't know what federal funding exists. I don't know if the funding in question exists. There is significant doubt about what federal money even still exists. But there's also quite a bit of state money. The governor proposes money in his budget every single year for this and many other clean water issues. I expect at least some of it to survive. The point I was making earlier, though, is wherever those pools are, one, we know we are very good at finding them, and we're very good at winning them. We win these grants annually, and we administer them. That's why, we're not. It's not like they're the experts on utilities. That's silly. We run as many utilities as they do. We run it much more affordably because we are able to win these grants, and we deploy those grants 100% to the benefit of our citizens. So I wish I could give you a more involved answer. I'm not prepared to, but we can try and create something of a comprehensive list of what grants exist, how we would apply for them. What I can say is our staff are extremely competent at winning them. Councilor Fennessy.
Yeah, I just had a question to your last point there. When you said that there's, I think you said quite a bit of state money that's available. Are you aware of state money that's available for water outside of like well testing and more of like the rural communities? Are you aware of state money that's available for this particular purpose? Because if you are, I'm not. So I was hoping that maybe you could shed some light on that.
Again, I'm not prepared to give involved answers to these questions. Off the top of my head, I think these funds we are eligible for. That's my understanding, especially since in response to the lead lines rule, and I'm trying to quote from memory from something I learned several days or weeks ago, there are significant exemptions made regarding these programs specifically to help communities address lead lines. Please don't take that answer to the bank. That is the best I have right now. But the DNR does administer several clean water funds for on behalf of the federal government. So but in terms of state funding, I can't give you a more involved answer than that. Okay. Councilor Graski.
Just to clarify, we've lobbied in the past. I appreciate everyone has mentioned that a lot. And, we've met with representatives, and we still haven't seemed to be getting an answer. So the idea of whatever we decide on today, it really does matter at the state if this bill goes somewhere. Out of how many bills will be introduced? Do you know how many bills yearly are introduced at the state level?
It's a lot.
Okay.
I don't know the answer. I think Councilor Sickle said it, but it's a couple hundred.
Excuse me. 2,200. Okay. And just to be clear, too, on this year, because we obviously have a lot of passion for this specific topic, it's not a Superior Days issue because there was not consensus to that, or can you help clarify that?
Yeah, it's because it didn't achieve consensus. Superior Days has a very strict standard for what becomes an issue. I won't take you through the whole process, but the first and most important reason is consensus. We want the whole delegation to agree that any given issue is in the best interest of Northwest Wisconsin, among other things. And so even a very small minority can kill an issue. That's actually happened several times in the history of Superior Days. And the reason is we don't want folks saying different things in different offices when we go down there. And if this subject had been on there, with all due respect to, say, Councilor Moffitt, if he opposes it, I can't ask him to go and advocate for it as a Superior Days delegate. That's the reason for that rule. So it's not majority rules. We look for consensus. Hard to do sometimes, but we got it on a few issues.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on the question on whether to postpone to the next City Council meeting? Okay, Councilor Sweeney.
The reason I think it's important to postpone, whether or not we vote for this in 2 weeks or in a month, it will open the doors to all possibilities. If we say tonight or in 2 weeks we're not going to, this is a bad bill, this is a bad idea, I think that will come out in 2 weeks. We will be able to figure that out. So that's why I'm for it. And if it has to be postponed or delayed another 2 weeks or another month, so be it. But we've got to get this right. Thank you.
Further discussion on the question to postpone? If not, we will proceed by roll call. Yes postpones this resolution until the next City Council meeting, the next regular City Council meeting. No brings us back to whether to adopt this tonight.
All right, please use your microphones to record your votes. Councilor Herrick.
Yes.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
Councilor Graski.
Yes.
Councilor Ledeen.
Yes.
Councilor Van Sickle.
Yes.
Councilor Moffitt.
No.
Councilor Sweeney. Yes. Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Elm.
Yes.
And Councilor Ludwig.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm missing a vote. Okay. The vote is 9-1 in favor of postponement. This is postponed to the next regular City Council meeting. I don't believe we have is there any other public comments? Right. Councilors, keep in mind the next meeting will be Wednesday, February 19th, due to the primary election. So we meet on Wednesday, February 19th at 6:30 p.m. and we are adjourned until that time.
Could I just make one quick announcement, Mayor?
Yes, we are
Yeah. This
public
is
comment, Counselor. 3 minutes.
This is about the River Talks coming up next week. I know that most of you will be down in Madison, but for some of you that will still be here, as well as the public who may be listening, I invite you to the River Talk series. It's put on by Lake Superior Natural Estuarine Research Reserve. Next Wednesday, February 12th, from 6:30 to 7:30 at the estuarium. A panel of members from the city of Superior, and I believe Chief Bolbrecht is on that panel, as well as I, and the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa will talk about partnering to return cultural fires to Wisconsin Point and the municipal forest. The talk that evening will be titled Returning Good Fire to Superior's Forest. So if you want additional information, hop on the estuarium's website, but I look forward to seeing some of you there. And that is it.
Counselor Herrick.
Just one question. Is it going to be recorded so those of us that are not there have the opportunity to listen to this?
I hope so. I believe so, yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Is there any further announcements from the council? If not, we are adjourned.